Hi, my name is Bree Scott. Now, have you ever gone outside and walked around and maybe gone to a park or even like a restaurant? And you're sitting in the restaurant and you're trying to enjoy your meal, and then all of a sudden you hear the theme song to Mickey Mouse Clubhouse blasting in the booth next to you. And you look and there's a child holding their tablet this close, watching, barely touching their food though, but so encaptured by this program. This happens quite often, I would assume. It amazes me how many children have their own tablets. And about 42% of children 8 years old or younger have their own tablet. According to a report, 2 in 5 kids 8 and under have their own tablets in 2017. Now, in this speech, I would love to persuade you on why children should not be introduced to technology at such early ages and how detrimental this can be. Tablets can lead to inhibitions in mental and emotional health. And the solution to this is to introduce technology gradually and at a later age, as well as to monitor the time spent online. The problem with technology is that it can be a mental inhibitor in development and emotional skills and social skills as well. An article explains that the first few years of a child's development is so critical for engaging in activities with people around them. These activities, such as talking or in touch, lead to associations created in our brains, and this also increase more neural pathways to be engaged. When technology is introduced at such an early age, this can disrupt that process and inhibit social and emotional skills, which can cause low self esteem and a lack of concentration as they get older, according to why you shouldn't give your child a tablet or smartphone. Also, according to another study done at BYU, a frequent use of technology at an early age can actually hinder self esteem and hormone levels, but create an addiction as well. This can be the first addiction a child can have, actually. A quote by them: the instant gratification we seek may initially be motivated by a desire for pleasure, but once our brain has learned that where we turn for pleasure, it will begin to use the same neural pathways a response to pain, fear, anger, and sadness. So, in essence, once a child associates the tablet with pleasure and a fun thing to do, and we upset them or anger them, and we reward them with such a like a tool and a device, this associates that okay, every time I throw a fit, every time I throw a tantrum, then I get this and I'm happy. So without that, then they aren't appeased when they are in distress. This creates the addiction. Children begin to use technology as an emotional crutch at a young age and depend on it through emotional times. Now, with an addiction development, this also affects how children interact with each other and with us. Studies have shown an increased use of technology as an increase in aggression and problematic behavior in children. Again, as I said, it can create more tantrums, it can create a lack of words in describing how they feel. Um, it also can show a lack of empathy due to a lack of interaction. When the child is consistently on the screen, not really engaged with the surroundings, not only is it not associating phrases or things or colors with their surroundings, but it's also not associating a connection with you. And this can cause a lack of social interaction and also a lack of social and emotional intelligence. Now, the solution you might want to know is about timing and monitoring to preventing such social and mental disconnects for a child. Now, in terms of timing, timing is everything when introducing anything to a child. Introduce something too early, it might be too much for that child. Introduce it too late, they're disinterested and not really understanding the connections. So, timing with technology is just as sensitive. Experts recommend to wait until children are at least preschool age to introduce technology because it's important for them to establish connections with the world first before sitting in front of a screen 24/7. And now this isn't the most common because I know people get busy, especially in like work or even if you're babysitting kids. Um, it's easier to set them in front of the TV and let them enjoy a TV show that they like or a movie, and it's less work for you. But it's important that they establish these connections, whether it would be through being sad or mad or happy, because then they can work through these feelings and get a better sense of themselves and how they attach to the people around them. According to Brown in 2013 when to introduce your child to a smartphone or tablet. Experts also recommend that you balance this usage. Now, at varying ages, there are varying times of usage. So, the most recent age, or the most earliest age, excuse me, to introduce is preschool. So, but in that age group, they recommend no more than 30 minutes of continuous usage a day. That means a lot of people who have been watching movies all day, especially in quarantine right now, this is not the best. Um, so 30 minutes a day with that age group. And as each age group increases, it increases by 30 minutes. And this is, again, consistent and continuous usage. You can break it up throughout the day as long as it is not continuous. Um, Also, researchers recommend that you don't have technology in the rooms that they sleep in because then they associate the technology with sleep and not necessarily their room with sleep. So, when coming into their room and they have a TV in their room or a tablet, they might think that they're allowed to use that or that's normal and that's okay. But in fact, it's not. And this actually stops them from getting the sleep and the rest that they need in order to be healthy and in order for their minds to make those neural pathways that I had talked about. Um, they also recommend that parents try to model this behavior because, as many of you know, children tend to imitate what they see and mimic. When they see you doing this behavior of limiting your usage of media or technology, whether that be a phone or a tablet or TV, they tend to do the same. Now, many children become of age and ask, like, why do you do these things or why are you doing these things? When you model this behavior, they don't tend to question when you tell them otherwise. So if they see you, then they will do. Monkey see, monkey do, according to a PBS article by Brown in 2013. Now, the amount of screen time, again, does matter. For ages 4 to 5, no more than half an hour per sitting, unless for educational purposes. So there is a caveat. If you're doing any educational programs or online experiences that stimulate like those connections and neural pathways, that's a different kind of conversation. And that does still have some precautions on how long a student should be looking at that or playing with a laptop with that. But in terms of leisure activities, no more than half an hour for preschool. Now, the advantages to this is we've seen better attitudes and habits for children, which promotes an overall healthy person, healthy self-esteem. Children with such limitations on technology receive more sleep. They avoid, and when you avoid technology, you avoid the addiction at such an early age. And it also has increased productivity and creativity. Technology tends to limit a child's focus and limits them to what they see on the screen. Now, this doesn't tap into their creativity, this doesn't tap into their productivity or imagination. When children are forced to go outside, they're forced to create and come up with scenarios and games and activities to keep themselves busy, which promotes critical thinking and creativity. Um, with limits and restrictions, children are more likely to exercise their imagination and critical thinking. Now, from firsthand experience, I've seen how technology limits an attention span of a child and increases their dependency on such technology. I've also seen how these restrictions have increased a child's imagination as I've watched my nieces and nephews um, find new and creative ways to entertain themselves. Thank you for listening to my speech on why you should not introduce technology to children at such an early age. I urge you to introduce technology to children in your life by being creative and ultimately boosting their self-esteem. And why does this matter for us? Well, this matters because do you want to be interrupted all the time when you're in a conversation in a restaurant and you hear all of these different videos going on, or when you even have your own kids eventually? You want to know how to parent them and create the best environment that you can for them in order to be an overall well-rounded individual going into adulthood, going into school, going into friendships and relationships. So thank you.